Well, the disability movement in Rwanda started in 1961 with the Catholic priest Father Joseph Flepon starting the first center for people with physical disabilities. But it really took up after the genocide in 1994-95. Before that, people with disabilities in Rwanda were usually regarded as something shameful to a family. And in fact, sometimes people would avoid taking brides from that family because they feared that the curse could be transmitted, it could be carried on. After 1995, people with disabilities started themselves getting together and sensitizing people to realize that it can happen to anybody, especially now that the number of people with disabilities had suddenly increased enormously because of the genocide.
You know, here in Rwanda is like anywhere in other country in Africa, especially our families, in our culture, when you have a child with disability, they say is come from a bad spirit. You must be in dark side. So that behavior we are trying to change. But even here, some area of Kigali, there are some children with disability who are still taken in that spirit.
The historical background is bad. Traditionally, people with disabilities in Rwandan society would not survive for a year even after birth because people believed that when you have a child with disability, it is a kind of a curse or it is a kind of a misfortune. Therefore, one had to get rid of the child before even a neighbor could see him or her. So I sometimes refer to them as survivors because they survived the killings and all those traditional interpretations.
abazihawe plutôt cyangwa n'abazifite n'ubwo zitafashe umurizo ariko yafashe umurizo.
When you come to Rwanda or when you are a Rwandan, you know very well that what has happened to this country in those famous 100 days is horrible and has left so many people with different disabilities. Apart from what we can see physically, we have different groups. There are those who are fighting to liberate this country that got injured. There are quite a number. We have those that were already disabled and were helpless, could not lift themselves to for any sanctuary or to get any refugee. Those were badly injured, even adding to their disability. There are those who also got injured directly from machetes and other things that were used during the genocide. They are injured twice, they are disabled twice, emotionally, physically, and those groups require a lot of support to make sure that they discover themselves, they discover that they are human beings again.
Depending of the census in 2002, it say that people living with disabilities in Rwanda are about 300,000 only. And depending of the WHO, they say in all poor countries, people living with disability are 10% of the population. And now our population is about 9 million. The genocide increased too much the number of people with disabilities. I can say they are more than 10% of the population now. Yeah. You know, from April until July is the period of remembering the genocide here in Rwanda. on Saturday, we are going to a center in Gatagara. Is still there, a center of people living with disabilities, and many people have been killed there in the center. And many of them was people living with disability. Yes. There are some of them who escaped it, but by chance. By chance. Yeah. It was not because they are people living with disability. They have the chance for not being killed. No. It was by chance. Yeah.
In Africa, following the United Nations Decade for People with Disability across the world, Africa benefited by bringing disabled persons together to have one common voice. And this sustained advocacy led to the African Union declaring the period 1999 to 2009 as the African Decade for People with Disability.
The acting president of FINAP is arriving.
Its main objectives are promoting policies, legislation, social programs, health, education, ICT, and making sure that people with disability and their organizations are strengthened to be the watchdog for its realization.
Now, how do people with disability now?
The African Decade and UN Decade has created and enabled people with disability to come together, form national organizations speaking on the rights of people with disability. So in Rwanda, we have FENAF as the lead national organization. But we also have the National Decade Steering Committee for Rwanda, which now brings together leaders from the national organizations of disabled persons in Rwanda, representatives from the government, with the sole aim of creating a platform for better understanding of inclusion of people with disability in the country.
Although we have a federation for people with disabilities in Rwanda, the more active one only started in 2007. With the help of the decade, we got the federation that we have now, where we have committees from sector to district to national level, where all the different types of groups can register. So that makes it possible to define the disability organization. In Rwanda, to make sure that it is easy for people with disabilities to find themselves in the government and also in the disability movement, with the help of the African Decade, we managed to organize the disability movement from bottom up. That is, we have representation of people with disabilities at the sector level, and we have 5 committees for all the 5 different disability groups that are recognized by the government: blindness, physical disability, hearing disability, intellectual disability, and this group that we simply refer to as others. And these committees come together and they elect a committee that represents all of them. And the chairperson or the coordinator of this group sits at the sector council. This same arrangement is repeated at district and national level.
So on each level, they have different attributions, and on each level, they have different assignments. For example, on each and every district committee, the five people elect one person to represent their interest in the district committee. So they are being integrated in the local government structures to make sure that their problems and their concerns are not left out during the planning sessions and other things.
At the national level, we have an electoral college of 183 people. These are all the district executive committees and all the national committees and the National Executive Committee of the Federation, plus 3 people from the African Decade Steering Committee, which will elect the parliamentary representatives for people with disabilities, as well as the representative to the East African Parliament.
You know, in our constitution, all parts of the population must be represented in the parliament. So I have been elected by the people living with disability, but when you are inside in the parliament, you are not for the people with disabilities or youth or your party. No. You are all Rwandese, for all Rwandese.
We now have laws that protect the rights of people with disabilities. That is why now this is possible. We have the law which is embedded in the national constitution, and then we have ministerial decrees which define how these laws are going to be put into practice. And of course, Rwanda has also signed and ratified the UN Convention. That happened on the 15th of December 2008. So we feel now we really have the freedom to act.
As I mentioned, persons with disabilities are involved and are included in decision-making process, even at the lower levels and at the district level and at the national level. When we say that they are included in the planning process and the decision-making, we don't take things for granted. We make sure that we visit different districts to get from the local administrators whether in their planning process, whether they have included persons with disabilities, and whether in their district development plans, there are some activities earmarked for the development of persons with disabilities and to ascertain their level of participation.
So I would like to know, how do you help disabled people, especially children?
Yeah, in this district there is a school.
So the decade has been going out trying to see how far people understand them, the people in authority, the district leaders who are supposed to be implementing them, the sector leaders, and even the people with disabilities representing others in the district councils to see whether they understand what they should be monitoring, what they should be insisting to be implemented, and how people with disabilities are included.
Of the people.
We'd like to go and speak to some local people who are either disabled themselves or who have disabled children. Could you recommend some people that we could go and talk to and see what their challenges are?
Yeah, there is a cooperative called SEFAPEC. We promote cooperative movement as a strategy to development.
So we are conducting this kind of analysis to make sure that now we fully understand and have the situation from different districts, and then sit together again and plan our way forward.
As a way of making sure that people with disabilities are able to earn a living, to support themselves and to support their own families, you know that dignity and respectability goes with productivity and responsibility. So we felt that in the disability movement, if people with disabilities cannot be employed, because unemployment is a problem that is common throughout the developing world. People with disabilities who cannot gain employment should be self-employed. And that means that we have to look for the kind of trades which can generate income without the person being formally employed. Some of these are things like tailoring, carpentry, basket making. Rwandan baskets are very popular at present the world over. When the government discovered this kind of income generating, they felt that it would be a good idea to encourage people with disabilities to join that kind of cooperatives so that they can be able to support themselves, instead of just expecting that they will always survive on support from the north. So there is a strong partnership, because it is the aim of the government that all Rwandans should take part in nation building, such that the government will only need to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves and who have no family support.
So we are partners, the government, the disability movement, and the civil society. We are working together, and we feel that after the civil society realizes that we are important and equal members in development, then this will also teach those families who still bear the tradition of belief that people with disabilities are useless, to start encouraging their children to go out, to go to school, because they think now that they are able also to provide for their families and for the society at large.
Now, with the disability movement having been decentralized to the sector level, a lot of people, well, sometimes they get the impression that it's a government institution, it's a government office to deal with disability. But in FENAF, we are happy for people to think it this way, because then they report their problems to our local committees, and we can take the issue up and refer them to the relevant authorities for their problems to be taken care of. Like this case that you see in the Kamonyi district, the district coordinator was informed of a case of a family with 4 children with intellectual disabilities, and he went to visit them, and he found these children, reported the matter to the Disability District Committee, and they agreed that it should be a matter to be reported to the District Council.
bari bose bagenda bamenyekana ariko bo ni ikintu kiruhije cyane kuko cyihishe ariko abandi basa n'abo bihishe mu giturage.
Murakoze cyane.
When this happened, it was referred to the district health office, and the health officer visited the children, so we can be sure that these children are going to be taken care of. So this is how the decentralization has really helped the local community to understand disability more, and the government is willing to take action so they can report issues to the government.
What the decade has managed to do over this period is you must understand that the decade is a pressure group, and our mission is advocacy, plus other things, but the main one is advocacy, particularly to get the three groups work together. That is government, civil society, and the disability movement. Now that we have our policies in place, we have our laws, domestic laws in place, and we have a UN convention ratified, I think now we have transferred the challenge to the governments to make sure that they deliver and provide what they have agreed to provide.
With the support of the decade, we are able to make sure that all the laws and decrees which are being passed by the government are being implemented at district level. But in future, FENAF should take it up when we have a strong enough federation. So it would be good if we can have some exchange of information, exchange of ideas with other organizations from Europe, from Denmark, and from other parts, because it's from there that we also learn what it is we can be able to access to make life more livable.